Greetings everyone and welcome to another Starship Review. This is part 2 in my ongoing series reviewing all of the ships from the 10th anniversary bundle. I asked and you answered, so by popular demand the next ship is the legendary Temporal science vessel, aka the Crossfield. One of only 2 science vessels in the bundle, the legendary science vessel comes with a new Glen visual that brings the Crossfield into the 25th century. It has a shorter lineage than some of the other ships in the bundle, with only 2 counterparts, one being a lockbox ship and the other a promo ship, making this the first time a Crossfield of any kind has been available in the C-Store, even if it is for a limited time event and squeezed into a mandatory basket of ships. Despite this, what you get is quite impressive. Let's break it down. Let's talk about the ship itself first. The legendary Crossfield is a standard science vessel as far as classification and mastery are concerned, so it doesn't come with any of the bells and whistles of the other variants like a hangar bay or a 7th weapon slot, but what it does have has been masterfully put together. A full temporal specialization gives it full access to all the temporal bridge officer abilities, as well as the molecular reconstruction mechanic. The passive support configuration mode greatly enhances the science capacity of the ship, and while I think the prowess of the molecular deconstruction beam is greatly exaggerated, it does pack a decent punch with no opportunity cost to use. Sporting both the Commander Science and Lieutenant Commander Science means that it can run 3 different max level anomaly abilities like Gravity Well, Subspace Vortex, and Cold in Space for example, as well as temporal anomalies like Timeline Collapse. If this weren't potent enough, it also sports a Lieutenant Commander Science command seat, enabling it to use any rank of concentrate firepower for Sci-Torp builds. If that still weren't enough, it includes a fixed Lieutenant Commander Tactical for maximum torpedo spam using entwined tactical matrices, and rank 3 torpedo buff of your choice. The cherry on top is a universal ensign seat that can fill in any gaps you might have. This might just be the best bridge officer seating I've ever seen on a science ship, and possibly the best bridge officer seating I've ever seen on any ship for the role it was intended to have. We haven't finished listing all the strengths of the ship yet though, as its 6 weapons are configured in a 4-2 layout and it features 5 science console slots. It also has a massive 1.45 shield modifier. A slightly underwhelming turn rate is about the only thing I can even begin to nitpick about this ship. I was initially impressed with the Crossfield when the blog came out, but after sitting with it for a couple of days and doing some research, I've come to the conclusion that it's not only the best ship in the bundle, but the best science ship in the game, at least in terms of performance. In fact, the Crossfield is so good, I don't believe we'll see another better science vessel until a major update comes to the game on the level of a new full specialization or something equally potent. We haven't even talked about the traits and extras yet, which we're going to go to now. Reaching Tier 5 in the Mastery tree will unlock both the traits from the Crossfield Spearhead and Mirror Crossfield. Let's look at the Spearhead trait first, Black Alert. This trait activates once per 25 seconds when activating Beam Overload, Cannon Rapid Fire, or any Intel BOF ability, and will summon a duplicate of your ship that fights for a few seconds, firing torpedo spreads. My only complaint with this trait is not that it isn't a strong performer in terms of damage, which it isn't, because it does look fun and it is fun to use, which is as good a reason to use it as any, but rather that it doesn't mesh well with the ship itself. You must use an energy weapon to trigger it as far as I can tell, which isn't the most common weapon type for science vessels, and without intel seating there are limited options for triggering it. However, it's still a cool trait, especially with the mycelial special effect, so you might want to try it on a different ship. The Mirror Crossfield trait, Terran Machinations, is less theatric and more performance oriented. When using any attack pattern bridge officer ability, you get a 30% Cat 1 exotic damage buff and a 10% firing cycle haste for energy weapons for 15 seconds. I find this trait to be a bit more disappointing than Black Alert, because it doesn't seem to know what it wants to be. The 2 effects it offers don't complement each other. It usually doesn't make sense to mix exotic damage and energy weapon damage on the same build, so one of the 2 effects will largely be wasted in most cases. Having said that, the firing cycle haste is by far the more potent of the 2 and very valuable, especially since it's relatively easy to keep it up 100% of the time with cooldown management or duplicate abilities. Once again, this trait is probably better used on a different ship, but that certainly doesn't make it bad. The new trait, Temporal Anchor, improves your gravity well by giving it an extra 20% Cat 1 radiation damage effect and a chance to apply a cooldown debuff to enemies. Oh yeah, and it also looks really cool too. I still think improved gravity well is better for juicing up your gravity wells, but there's nothing stopping you from using both. A solid trait that's more for show than performance, but it does do something interesting visually with a staple ability, and unlike the other 2 traits, it fits well on the ship that unlocks it. Of course, traits aren't the only thing that come with the Crossfield. We also have 2 consoles and an experimental weapon. Let's take a look at the consoles first. From the Spearhead, we get the Mycelium Ambush Universal Console. Equipping it will give you some small but useful passives like Scientific Readiness and a token amount of EPG and control expertise. The Clicky, the Lorca Maneuver. Using it will teleport you forward 8 meters in a flare of Mycelial's Showmanship, where you will gain some bonker level buffs for 5 seconds before being returned to whence you came. During that brief window, you'll gain 50% firing cycle haste for energy weapons, 50 accuracy, and a ludicrous 25% crit chance. Stuff of the gods to be sure, but with a 5-second uptime every 2 minutes, it's hardly game-breaking. It makes for a nice finisher though, and it does look cool. The console from the mirror Crossfield is the Weaponized Helical Torsion, although I'm probably mispronouncing that. This one's all about the passives, 15% Cat 1 phaser damage, and crucially 15% crit severity. Few consoles can offer that level of crit severity, and most of them come from the Lobby store at 200 crystals each for a single character. This is an excellent console for energy weapon builds, especially ones that use phasers. I wouldn't call it an auto-include because it will depend on your console layout, what other consoles you own, and what the needs of your particular ship are. However, it's safe to say it's on the short list for top consoles and one of the better account unlockable ones at that. The Clicky, which shares its name with the console, does a point-blank AoE hold and physical damage. I'm not personally fond of point-blank AoE abilities as a matter of personal taste, and this console is worth using even if it didn't have a Clicky, but I should state that the Clicky does do a respectable amount of damage with Shield Pin. Rounding out our discussion, let's talk about the experimental weapon, the Agonized Subatomic Disintegrator. It doesn't come pre-equipped on the legendary Crossfield because this version of the ship doesn't have an experimental weapon slot, but it can be claimed by any Federation-aligned character for free in the Dilithium Store Reclaim tab. It has a physical damage attack with Shield Pin, which is pretty good. I did a bit of testing with it and it performed pretty well. I don't have a definitive ranking of experimental weapons, though maybe that's an idea for a video in the future, but I'd safe to say to assume that it's one of the better ones. If it isn't obvious yet, this ship is a masterpiece. A perfect score isn't high enough. This is one of those ships that just transcends everything else in its pay grade, the way the VOD War Juggernaut did when it came out. I give the legendary Crossfield an 11 out of 10. I'm not sure how it's possible to go up from here, but you can help me decide where to go next by leaving a comment telling me which of the 8 remaining ships you'd like to see next. However, I will be leaving the Sovereign for last, as I have big plans for that one. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, leave a like and consider subscribing so you can be notified when the other review videos come out. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.